Okay, folks, it is 6 o'clock, and I am calling to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Common Council of the City of Platteville. Today is Tuesday, June 10th. We're in the council chambers. Dave will start with roll call.
Bob Gates. Here. Ken Killian. Here. Kathy Kopp is excused. Tom Knoll. Here. Lynn Parrott.
Here.
Tony McFall is excused. And Barb Doss.
Here. Okay, the first item on our agenda are some special presentations. The first recognizing Maureen Vorwald for 13 years of service on community safe rights. So, Maureen. Actually, I think the Community Safe Routes Committee may be the only committee we have that you could actually have a life. So, at any rate, you may have been on since the very first.
I
When
was, no, I think I was on when, I don't know if there was a committee yet, when Angie Wright was writing. And then, I think, it escapes me, but somebody's on.
Okay.
I'm sure.
So anyway, here we go. Recognition of Maureen Vorwald's 13 years of outstanding service and dedication to the Community Safe Routes Committee. Whereas Maureen has faithfully served on the Community Safe Routes Committee since 2012. And whereas Maureen has acted as the Platteville School District liaison to the Community Safe Routes Committee since. And whereas Maureen has provided incredibly valuable insight on the needs of school children for exercise and safe walking and biking access. And whereas Maureen has taught safe bike riding programs and obtained grants to purchase bicycles for the Platteville School District. And whereas Maureen developed an incentive program for children to ride bikes to school and coordinated a walking school bus program to promote safe walking to school. And whereas Maureen has played a vital role in obtaining letters of support from the Platteville School District for Department of Transportation and Department of Natural Resources grants to improve and expand walking and biking trails. And whereas Maureen has made a lasting and incredibly positive impact on the overall physical activity of the community and citizens of the city of Platteville. Now, therefore, I, Barb Doss, Common Council President of the City of Platteville, and on behalf of the Common Council and city employees, both past and present, do hereby wish to express our sincere appreciation to Maureen Vorwald for her dedication and service to the City of Platteville. There you go. Thank you. Are you your replacement? Who's naming your replacement?
Well, it was decided that the replacement would be whoever had been the wellness coordinator for the district since the inception of that position. Whoever takes over that position, it's a perfect fit. So
Cool.
yeah, they should be.
Great. Thank you. And Maureen, actually, I don't think you could actually be replaced. It's just the person who will step in next. All right, we'll move on with our second special presentation, and that's the 2024 audited financial statements. Johnson Block and Company are our audit firm. So Brent and Quinn.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brent Nelson. I'm an audit partner with Johnson Block and Company. I'm out of our Mineral Point office. With me tonight is Quinn Mitchell. She's the audit manager out of Mineral Point as well. So she's the lead kind of a point person for the city of Platteville audit. So everybody at the city, all city personnel have probably seen Quinn at some point over the years. I have the slide, so I handed out hard copies to the council people. We do have some extras if anyone wanted a hard copy. Otherwise, if the clicker's ready, I can take it. Otherwise, I'll just kind of say which. You want me to grab that?
This is the same copy as I got, item 3B.
Yes,
It's the same thing?
yes.
Okay.
It looks like what you have is the full report, and there's
Right.
also a presentation that's a
Presentation.
summary version.
And I'm here tonight presenting on the year ended December 31st, 2024. So five and a half months of dated data, but so this is a historical look. So going to keep it pretty high level. I believe everybody has a hard copy of the full audit report, which is a lengthy 100+ page document. So I was going to keep it pretty high level tonight with the PowerPoint. Feel free to interrupt with any questions or ask me questions at the end, but or slow me down at any point. But first slide. So we've completed our audit. We issued the audit early last week is when we issued that, and we issued what's called unmodified opinion. So that's a good thing. You know, nothing came to our attention that caused us to any reason to modify our opinion. So everything we felt in that bound report, that 100-page document, was in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles in all material respects. So maybe if there was a small error, you know, but in all material respects, we feel issued an unmodified opinion. The scope of our audit included all the city's funds, which there's a lot of funds anymore. That's the main ones, the general fund, the utility, the TIF districts. There's a number of funds, but it included the housing authority. All that was captured within the scope of our audit. In addition to our audit, we also do some regulatory. We assist with some regulatory reporting. There's most specifically the water utility has an annual filing to the Public Service Commission because they're regulated by the PSC. And then there's a report that goes to the Department of Revenue called the Municipal Financial Report. It's an all capturing financial document. Couple things. So I'm discussing the 2024 audited financial statements. There's a couple things we're going to be doing here in the next couple months. Namely, I think most fresh on, I guess, my mind or everybody's mind is TIF 5 closed recently, and there's a final audit that has to be done with the closeout of TIF 5. I'm not expecting any refunds to be issued because the refunds have any access in TIF 5 has gone to TIF 7, which I assume that's the plan for 2025 as well. But that's on the horizon. We were going to wait until after the August settlement. The final settlement comes from Grant County in around mid-August. So we're going to wait and wrap that up this fall, along with the federal compliance audit called a single audit. So a couple of reports we'll be finishing up here in August, September. Slide 3. So overall, the 2024 financial highlights. Like I said, there's a lot of funds that the city has broken down individually, you know, self-sustaining funds. Overall, across all governmental funds, the increase in overall fund balance was $6,042,375. And just want to dig into, that's a big number, but there's a reason for that. So just looking at the individual funds, some of the more notable ones, the general fund increased on page 3, the general fund increased $383,000. Capital projects increased $293,000. Capital projects can go fluctuates in conjunction with some debt issuances. So there was debt issued in 2024 that wasn't all spent, so the fund balance goes up. The fire facility fund was the biggest driver of that increase in fund balance so that fund alone had an increase of about $4.5 million. And the biggest driver of that was the debt issuance in late 2024, $4.6 million. That clearly wasn't all spent by the end of the year. So that fund balance will then, you know, carry over to 2025 and going forward. TIF number 6 decreased $463,000. Debt service has been pretty heavy in the TIF district, or TIF 6. I think ultimately that's been extended a few times. It still looks favorable. I think that it'll pay itself off eventually, but it's going to take some time. You know, we're looking at 2031 or so. But so heavy debt service in 2024 for TIF 6 led to a decrease. TIF 7 had a big increase, $886,000. Large TIF 5 transfer. So annually TIF 5's been transferring. So after 2025, those transfers will go away, but TIF 7 did see a big increase for that. And then the debt service fund increased about $205,000. Overall, general fund had favorable budget to actual results. So just meaning actual revenues were higher than budgeted revenues, actual expenditures were less than budgeted expenditures. So good things there, budget to actual. Net position of the water and sewer utility increased to $2,087,000. So we'll dig into that a little bit later on a later slide. Slide number 4 on general fund balance. One of the things I like to always bring up is the city has a fund balance policy of where it wants to keep its fund balance in relation to unassigned fund balance compared to total expenditures. So unassigned fund balance, this is just a 5-year trend of the general fund balance over the past 5 years, with the most recent December 31st, 2024, dating back to 12/31/2020. But overall, general fund balance has been very steady and stable over the past 5 years, ranging from about 4.5 million up to a little over 5 million at the end of 2024. And then slide 5 is just digging into that general fund balance. So the city's policy is to maintain unassigned general fund balance of at least 20% of its annual expenditures. So the city's minimum, it wants at minimum the ratio to be 20%. And the city's consistently been over that 20%. So for 2024, at the end of 24, unassigned fund balance was approximately 28% of annual fund balance. So that's a good thing. So it still have always been well in line with the city's minimum threshold. Slide 6 is a 3-year trend on revenue. Just looking at the general fund, the biggest revenue source of the general fund is intergovernmental sources, namely from the state. There is some federal money in there with taxi and some FEMA money that comes through. Some other things come up, but state revenues is the biggest revenue source for the city's general fund. And then, so that made up 46% of the annual revenues of the city of Platteville's general fund for 2024. Taxes is the second biggest source at about 36% of total revenues. Intergovernmental revenues, if you look at the 3-year trend, in 2022 and 2023, intergovernmental revenues have been about 3.8 million, 3.9 million, compared to 2024, where it was well over 4.4 million. And which is, if you've looked at if I had this for 10 years prior, that state revenue has been extremely flat. But for 2024 was the first year we saw an increase in the state shared revenue with the passage of Act 12. So it's nice to see a $596,000 increase in shared revenue there. That really has been helping municipalities across the state of Wisconsin. Because that wasn't just something the city of Platteville got, that was an across the board increase. Slide 7, looking at expenditures for the general fund. Biggest, so, and this is broken down by how the state of Wisconsin requires expenditures to be classified. So general government, public safety, public works, that's how all municipalities in the state of Wisconsin break down costs. The biggest functional cost of the city's general fund is public safety. So your fire and police are your biggest components of that, but there is other, building inspection, things like that too. So the public safety was approximately 36% of the general fund expenditure budget. Leisure activities was about 20%, was the second biggest at about 20%. And that'd be your parks and rec, your pool, things of that nature. Capital outlay. We usually don't see a lot of capital outlay in the general fund. Most of the time we'll see that in the capital projects fund is where the capital outlays. We did see an outlay in the general fund of $412,000 for 2024. And the biggest reason for that, there was a loan receivable repaid in 2024 that was transferred to the general fund to be used for affordable housing purposes. So it is unique to see that capital outlay in the general fund, but that's the rationale behind that. It was used to buy some land for some development there. Page 8, slide 8. Switching gears to the utility side of things. So we're no longer looking at the general fund. Utilities are self-sustaining funds. So they're not operated with tax dollars. They're operated with user charges. So we're talking about the water and sewer utility. So look, the table's a 5-year trend. So for 2024, water and sewer revenue was over 6.9 million. And we've seen a steady increase in the utility revenues over the past 5 years, comparing to 2020, which I know was a COVID year, but was about 4.7 million, and a steady increase in utility revenues over the past 5 years. And we started to see expenditures go up as well on the utility side, but overall net income of the utility has been increasing the past 5 years. Sewer rates were increased 10% in January 2024. The most recent water utility rate increase was in July 2024, about a 4% increase there. One thing I want to point, the water utility, I mentioned we do an annual filing to the PSC for them, and the rate of return for the city of Platteville's water utility is 4.7%. So it's basically your net income divided by your assets, your utility plant. So 4.7%. And I looked up what the statewide average is, and it's 4.15%. So that 4.17 is right in line with the state average. So I mentioned the net income's been going up in the utility. There's been some big capital improvements in recent years. So what's not included in that net income is the pay down of the principal of debt. So just because net income doesn't necessarily translate into cash in the bank. So I always like to point that out because there was $4 million of debt issued in 2024 for some infrastructure projects. And those payments start in 2025. So I imagine the reason for the increase was to be able to pay off those debt service payments started in 2025. Slide 9 is just a look of what outstanding debt the city of Platteville has as of December 31st, 2024. And I know there's some upcoming borrowing likely to happen here in 2025, but as of December 31st, 2024, the first part, governmental activities. So that would be basically anything non-utility. So general fund, capital projects, TIF districts. Beginning balance would be January 1, 2024. Increases would be new debt issued during the year. So new debt the city issued in 2024 was the $4.6 million for the fire facility, and then $1.3 million for more standard street infrastructure projects. But total debt issuance of $5.9 million. So at the end of the year, bonds and notes payable of about $22,103,000. So the business type activities would be the utility, so the non-tax levy. I mentioned the utility issued about a little over $4 million of debt as well in 2024. So the utility had revenue bonds outstanding at December 31st of $21,645,000. So actually, just seeing now the governmental activities and business type activities have about the same amount of outstanding debt as of December 31st. Another thing I like the state of Wisconsin has a limit on how much debt a municipality can issue, or general obligation debt, meaning they can use the taxing power of the municipality. So the city of Platteville's debt limit, as set by Wisconsin state statutes, $51,325,000. It would be the limit. You can't issue any more general obligation debt than that. Comparing that to what the city actually has outstanding at year end, $22,103,000. So there is capacity there. So it sounds like there is some likely borrowings to occur in 2025. The city still has plenty of capacity to still be in compliance with state statutes. And just to wrap up on slide 10, so I guess my overall conclusion, the city's in healthy shape, or the general utilities in a strong position, got a good rate of return, general fund balance as well within the city policy, and overall what we're seeing with that 20% threshold. So good things there. Wanted to extend our thanks. The city audit process has gone really well. I know there's been some turnover over the years, and the audit went really, really smooth this year. So we appreciate all the help there. In addition to the audited financials, I mentioned we'll issue a single audit report when that's completed in September, likely September. We'll issue a TIF District 5 closeout audit. We did issue a required audit communication document, which is mostly standard communications. There are some specific, I don't know if you'd say management letter, kind of general recommendations. I wasn't planning on going over that tonight, but I invite you to read through those. When you get a chance, let us know any questions with those. But overall, appreciate the city's help with everything, and let us know if we can be of service anytime throughout the year. Any questions with?
Okay, questions of Brent?
I want to make a comment.
Go ahead.
I want to thank you very much for making this much easier to understand, because I went through reading a lot of your pages here, and so I didn't know it per item. So thank you very much.
Yep, you bet. Yeah, and I like to concentrate on the high level. And I'm willing, I have the hard copy with me. We could dig into the details, but for a presentation like this, I like to hit the high
I
notes.
was on audit, and I'd spend an hour and a half just working on audit. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Hey, anybody else with questions? Otherwise, thank you to Johnson Block, and thank you to our finance staff, Nicola, and your team. I know that this is not necessarily your favorite time of the year.
We love our auditors.
Do they bring donuts or what? Or do you bring donuts?
That's a great idea. I think we should introduce that as a new tradition.
A new tradition.
Just want to give a shout out to Jeff, who, this was his first year. but
First year.
He did a tremendous job. So thank you, Jeff.
So it's great that we have our audit wrapped up and we're filed and we're ready to continue. So thank you very much. And if there are no questions from council, we'll proceed with our agenda.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is consideration of the consent agenda. Let's see, I heard, these can be approved on a single motion and vote, and if somebody wants something discussed, let me know. We have the council minutes from May 27th, the regular meeting. We have payment of the bills. We have the financial report for May, appointments to boards and commissions. Tonight, I am correcting an error I made last time when I incorrectly said Angie Wright when it was Chris Wright. I wanted to appoint to Parks, Forestry, and Recreation. Sorry about that. It's all right. Okay, got it. For Commission on Aging, I am reappointing Mike Walsh and Napoleon Hall. They had both served a few months out of somebody else's term. Now they'll get their own terms. Tourism Committee is, we're going to have Deb Jenny return, and Julie Klein will be our new motel, hotel, property representative. And I will verify, we'll need a new rep from UW Platteville, as the current rep moved out of the city. So we'll be looking to fill the remainder of those at the next meeting. So that's what I have for tonight. Moving on, licenses, 1 and 2 year operator licenses to serve and sell alcohol as are in your packet. Temporary Class B to serve fermented malt beverages to the Democratic Party of Grant County at the Broski Center on Wednesday, June 18th from 4:30 to 8 for their annual picnic. Junk dealer license to Chandler Salvage, and the renewals of our licenses for annual fermented malt beverage and intoxicating liquor. I'm assuming that those have been reviewed and are being forwarded by the License Committee.
Let me just take a look and see what Colette said in her staff note. I'm not sure if all of those go through the license committee each year, if it's just a renewal, and if there's no questions regarding it. I don't know if, Dave, you can shed any light on that at all.
I believe they're on the next agenda.
They are on the
Yes,
next license.
for the
committee
license
agenda?
committee.
Okay, thank you.
They're on the
for
next agenda, but we're approving them at this meeting. That seems a little strange. At any rate, the annual fermented malt beverage and intoxicating liquor licenses, these are renewed annually. I believe it's July 1 to June 30. And then permits, fireworks permit for the fireworks committee for the 4th of July fireworks on July 4th. Rain date is July 6th, and this is at dusk at Legion Field. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve all the items listed under the consent agenda.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Dave will vote.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
yes,
Null,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Doss.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we're at citizens' comments, observations, and petitions, if any. And I would point out that on your desk tonight, you received an invitation to the Monday, July 23rd, dedication of the Mitchell Roundtree Stone Cottage Historic Marker. So, we all know where the Mitchell Roundtree Stone Cottage is, so hopefully we'll see lots of that. This will be before our next meeting. So Mitchell Roundtree Stone Cottage dedication. It's one of those big brown, huge signs. So that will be on that day. Tom, did you want to talk or not?
I'm good.
Okay. That's the only thing I have. Is anybody on of our department's heads have anything they want to announce? Okay, then we'll move on to reports that were in the packet. Tourism Committee, Kathy isn't here. Housing Authority Board, I have nothing to add, although we continue to look for an executive director. It's a part-time position. It's posted on the city's website. Museum Board, Tom?
Nothing more.
Not replacing Bob.
Executive Director of the Public Housing Authority. So it had been for years Jen Weber, and she left about a
She
year
left to
ago.
go
Right, and we have had a,
Hawaii or
yeah,
something.
she left and went to Hawaii, and we have had a temporary housing director, but we are in the process of trying to hire a housing director.
Okay, but that person is really not a member of the city per se.
No, they're hired by the Public Housing Authority, so they're not a city employee.
Right.
Yeah.
And now they're at the position that there are no openings unless somebody leaves.
In terms of Public Housing Authority, the voucher, the program, yes, at this point in time, there are likely no openings, right? Right. Okay, but, okay, that's good. Museum Board, Tom,
Nothing further to add.
how about community safe routes?
Nothing further to add.
Okay. Other reports in your packet were the water and sewer financial reports for May, the airport financial report for May, and department progress reports. Any questions on the department progress reports?
I'm trying to find the listing.
It's back on page, yeah, it's on page 233.
233.
233. So you must be about right. Okay.
165. 185.
Actually, you must be past them. On my copy, it's It's page 232, 233.
My copy says 188.
Oh, okay. Well, do you have questions on any progress report?
No, I'm just trying to get where I'm at,
Okay,
where it should be. Okay, keep on going.
okay. If there are no questions on the department progress reports, then we'll move to the action tonight. The first is Resolution 25-OA, providing for the sale of approximately 1,210,000 general obligation promissory notes, Series 2025A. Nicola.
Thank you. So as we do each year, we consider a borrowing to fund our capital improvements program. And the 2025 budget included 1,553,960 of capital improvements through issuance of debt. However, of that amount, 225,000 were for costs associated with the pool project. The 225,000 will be included in the borrowing for the pool project, which is planned most likely to be later in 2025. So after consideration of the available street reconstruction bids that have been received by the city, the adjusted amount of debt proceeds needed to fund the CIP projects is estimated at $1,142,994. And as you may remember from last year, in 2023, Wisconsin Act 128 extended the maximum maturity date for promissory notes. It used to be 10 years and now it's 20 years. And so because of their additional flexibility, the 2025 borrow for CIP will be via promissory notes rather than general obligation bonds. So staff is recommending funding the adjusted amount of $1,142,994 through general obligation notes. And now I have listed the specific projects to be funded through that debt. With the cost of issuance for the debt, the total estimate for the debt issue is $1,210,000. We have Kayla Thorpe with us from Ella's, and she is going to walk through the pre-sale report with you. But before she does, I just wanted to point out that we are watching closely the timing of the pool project and how that unfolds this year. And we may, as we go through a few weeks of summer here, we may choose to combine this debt issue with the pool project debt issue. If that makes sense, it would yield a little bit of cost savings on the issuance costs. But we want to make sure that if for some reason the project were delayed and we did not need to borrow until early 2026 for the pool, we would still want to issue this debt for 2025 CIP projects. So we still have some flexibility tonight. We're just authorizing the borrow, but there'd be continued action by the council if we were to move forward with a separate CIP borrow.
I'm sorry. Before we go into the explanation, I do have a question, if I may.
Sure.
You say that you're taking that 225,000 out of what the pool was going to be borrowed for the pool. So out of the 6.9, 225,000 would be taken out of that.
No, let me rephrase and see if I can
Okay.
clarify. So the total in the budget for borrowing for projects was $1,553,000.
Okay.
That's the number that we're taking the 225 out of. So if we want to try to understand where did we start out in the year with our anticipated borrow for CIP, it included that 225,000 because when we passed the budget, we weren't sure what we were going to do about the pool. And so we set aside 225,000 towards studies for the pool and potentially removal of the vessel or whatever. That was back in October, November of last year. So that 225,000 will be a part of the total 6.9 million borrow later, anticipated to be later this year.
See, I remember it being, $225,000 was in the capital improvement budget for a sidewalk project on Southwest Road from the Fox Ridge Apartments.
Correct.
And Barb made a motion that we change that and take that money, not do that project on Southwest Road, and give that $225,000 to the pool project. And then when the referendum was held, that was for $6.9 million. So I thought people were voting on an additional $6.9 million borrow in addition to that 225 that had been changed from going to the project on Southwest Road to the pool.
I agree with Bob.
Okay, that was not my understanding, but certainly if that's the council's understanding of what was intended, then I would defer to the city manager on how we would move forward with that.
If you wanted to do a 225,000 on top of the 6.9, though, I think part of the reason that we were moving the 225 was to have one complete package, so we didn't have the notes mixed, because Nicola and her team is going to have to do a lot of satisfying with closing out the notes to make sure that they're all lined up. Is that correct?
So that's still, yes, if whether the 225 is included in the 6.9 or additional to, we would still make that part of the same borrow for the pool. But it might be, it sounds like the intent of the council is that it would be 6.9,225,000 for the pool.
And that's nothing that
That's
will,
what I thought, because we did eliminate another project and move the money for this.
Get money for this project.
That's right, isn't it, Howard? That's Fox Ridge project was scratched so they could get started on the pool.
Right.
So as far as tonight is concerned, either way, we would be working towards authorizing the 1.2 million for the CIP projects that are listed in the staff note.
And we're going to hear from
yes, thank you.
Taylor Thorpe. Yes.
I'm just going to share my screen just so I can go through pretty quickly. Nicola gave a great explanation of kind of where we at. Tonight is before you is the resolution to set the sale of not to exceed the 1.6 or $1.210 million for our known capital improvements at this time. I'm not going to go through kind of all the legalese here, as you have seen that all before, but just really highlight the schedule that at this point in time, this is for our known projects. We still have plenty of flexibility should that the pool project come to more concrete kind of estimates and numbers, and we need to execute the borrowing in 2025 to include that in this and kind of delay our schedule as we have it laid out here. But at this time, we're moving forward with this. Should the city want to borrow and combine the borrowings, what would happen is, for transparency purposes, Quarles and Brady would draft an additional resolution that would go before you for the total amount. And this kind of resolution would go away and be replaced by an additional resolution, just for transparency and kind of papering the file so that everyone's on the same page. But as we stand, we're reviewing the pre-sale here tonight. We'll have a due diligence and reviewing the official statement and conference with the rating agency the week of July 7th. I'm distributing the official statement on July 15th, with you awarding the sale of the notes on July 22nd, with closing estimated on August 14th. That is when the city would receive the funds in their accounts. The city's outstanding debt, as your auditor just said, is limited to 5% of the equalized value. The city does have an internal policy limiting debt to 3.5% of equalized value, and we'll highlight that kind of in the all-in capacity analysis. But currently, this is the city's debt structure moving from left to right, the total general obligation debt payments. There are abated sources, meaning there are outside sources of TID revenues that pay a portion of that general obligation debt, with the remaining falling onto the falling onto the property tax levy. So in 2025, the property tax levy was $1.7 million, which is about $1.96 per thousand. The projects being funded with these notes include equipment purchases and street and stormwater improvements as identified here. That gets us to that 1.42 million. Adding in cost of issuance to that, cost of issuance is about $73,000, with the bulk of that coming from bond counsel fees, rating agencies fees, and the underwriter spread. The cost, the reason why we would combine the pool issuance if it needed to be executed in 2025 is that it would save about $40,000 in cost of issuances combining them versus doing them separate. If the timing lines up that we need the funds in 2026, we would then combine the pool funding with the 2026 capital improvement plan to kind of capitalize on cost of issuance as much as possible. The city amortizes this out over a 10-year period, or I think this is 11 years, to really match kind of the useful life of the projects. We amortize it by portion, even though the levy will be paying for all portions of this debt, where we end up with principal and interest payments kind of in that $100,000 range after the first year. Now, taking a look at the financing plan impact on an all-in basis, as we've reviewed kind of that all-in debt cover or that debt tax levy is before these notes and then what it will be after these notes. We've structured debt really around your existing payments, kind of spiking and then dipping. Our goal when we structure debt is to minimize any peaks and valleys in the tax rate as possible and stabilize that as far as a debt service perspective. And that's really what we've done here, is that you see minimal fluctuation between the debt service tax rate in the years in which the debt service is coming online. Obviously, it'll be falling off as your existing debt falls off, and then we will structure any new debt in future years around this, again, in the exercise to minimize the property tax impact. Over the life of this debt, the average home of $200,000 will pay about $259 in additional taxes to support this debt. Here's our debt capacity analysis, which outlines where this will put us on a statutory limit, where this will put you at 43% of your statutory, 5% of equalized value limit. Of the city's internal policy, that'll put you about 62%, leaving a residual capacity of about $13 million. So still sufficient capacity to take on the projects that the capital improvement plan calls for in the future. Also taking into account that there will be debt falling off, therefore the capacity will increase as the debt falls off. We just like to give kind of a snapshot of where our 2-year trend and bond indices are. We've had some market volatility, especially since tariffs were announced, even though we're starting to see that kind of plateau right now. The current 2-year trend is at 5.27, though we've been having sales in our office over the last few weeks that have been in the 4s and even the high 3s. And so we anticipate that there will be the availability that we are under our projected tax or our rate impact, but really unknown given that we won't be selling this until the end of July. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, anybody have questions of Kayla?
I'm sorry, Kayla. I think I'm the guy that never knows what shell the coin's under.
That's okay.
Okay, just back on the pool. If that 225 is added to the borrow, it would then be 7.125 million, not 6.9, correct?
Correct.
And so that, I'm not sure what you call it, the impact of financing plan that Ellers had already put together for 20 years, showing the average household and the impact it would have on that. It would be a little greater because it would now be 7.125 million instead of 6.9. But that 225 that was moved from the street project to the pool earlier, was that a borrow at that time, or was that
No.
money that was existing?
It was a planned in the capital project plan that you adopted in your budget. It was not borrowed for at that time. And quite honestly, the 225,000 split over the city's equalized value, which is just over $1 billion, will be a fraction of a penny. If that makes sense.
It makes sense. It's just, I want to be clear on what we shared with the community and what actually happens.
Correct. No, I completely understand and agree. We put that analysis together based off of the information that was provided to us. That was in a completely different interest rate environment as well. And so we're happy to update that analysis at the city's direction to give a more accurate reflection, not only on the total dollar amount, but where we currently are in an interest rate environment.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions?
None.
Okay, then do I hear a motion? This would be adopting resolution 2508.
Right.
Right.
Well,
Did you
I
make
move,
that?
I'm doing,
Okay.
yeah. I move to adopt resolution 25-08, providing for the sale of approximately $1,210,000 general obligation promissory note series 2025A.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Lynn and a second by Tom to adopt resolution 2508, providing for the sale of approximately $1,210,000 in general obligation promissory notes. Series 2025A. Dave will vote.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes,
Null,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Doss.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, second action item on our agenda.
Thanks, Kayla.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, yeah, Kayla. Yeah, she just all of a sudden popped on. All right, next item on our agenda for action tonight is then award contract 16-25. This would be a Pine Street repairs. So Howard and I believe Dan, I believe we got new information tonight. So we're looking at the information that was passed out tonight, not the information that was in our pack. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, as far as the staff note goes, the only thing that I changed was on the back, I struck the generic motion and I put options 1 and 2. We'll go through this a little bit more in detail, but option 1, highlighted in green, would be to award the contract for repairs from Oak to Chestnut Street. Option 2 would be from Oak to 4th Street. That one's in yellow. But Dan can come up and talk through what we got from the quotes, and we can go forward from there with our recommendation.
Thank you, Howard. So today at 1 o'clock, we received quotes from 4 contractors. Temporary Excavating of East Dubuque, G-Pro Excavating of Montfort, Owens Excavating of Hazel Green, and Rural Construction of Dodgeville. Because of the emergency nature of this project, this was not a full bid process. This was just quotes. All 4 contractors were invited to bid on this by the city of Platteville. So all 4 contractors have done work in the city of Platteville recently over the last 5 years with no issues. So the integrity of any of the contractors, we don't have to worry about that discussion because the city has selected these. So there, for the quote was broken up into 2 parts. As Howard mentioned, the first part is for replacement of the water main from Oak Street to just east of 4th Street. The second part of the project was to replace the water main from just east of 4th Street to Chestnut Street. We met with them last week, last Wednesday, I believe. Plans were provided to them ahead of time, so they could review it ahead of time and we walked through the project. For their quotes, they were required to provide prices. Even though this was a quote, we did a bid breakdown or a bid form for them, just like we normally would, so that there's no questions from them. So they were supposed to indicate price as well as schedule. So there is a sheet, just a single page that has just the Pine Street Water Main Replacement Project cost in the upper left-hand corner. And this is kind of the summary of all the quotes. And what we did here on that single sheet is we put the total cost of the project, not just the contractor cost, because the contractor cost is just one component of this. So as you can see, we broke it down in the upper section. Temporarily excavating, they were the low bid. They're the ones that are highlighted in like a yellowish tan color. They were $255,026.00. That was their portion of the replacement from Oak to Fourth. They indicated a completion date of July 31st of 2025, which is what we've been discussing with the Water and Sewer Commission, city staff, as well as the city council. Traffic control will be approximately 15,000. Engineering will be approximately 33,500. We are still including a contingency when we look for this approval, just because of some unknowns with this project. So one of the concerns that we have on this particular section is that when we had that water main break on April 8th, we can identify multiple slabs of concrete pavement that have been damaged or undermined. But what we don't know is maybe some stuff that's off to the side. For example, the center lane of pavement and or the curb and gutter that would be on the edge. So we're asking the council that if you guys would proceed with this project, that we, at least set aside an additional $25,000 for the just in case. Now, looking through the pavement, we're hoping we don't run into that situation, but that's once again a just in case. So with that, first portion, which is like say the upper half of the page here, I also have on the right hand side a section, an item highlighted in blue. That's from Rural Construction. Rural Construction had a very expedited completion schedule, and the reason why I'm highlighting that is because of the nature of the project. However, on the base bid, they are $50,000 more than Temperley. So the question for the base is going to be is $50,000 worth a few weeks of dealing with this old water main and the pavement and the condition. Personally, Howard and I feel that a few weeks in this situation isn't worth the $50,000, but that's, a decision that's something that needs to be brought into consideration. Second part of the bid is the lower half of the project of the page, which is the alternate work. And once again, that's the water main replacement that goes from 4th Street up to Chestnut Street. Once again, temporarily excavating was low. In this case, they were significantly lower than the other bidders. They were at $426,103.45. Their anticipated completion date is August 29th, which is just before Labor Day. Traffic control of 15,000, engineering of 42,000. Once again, we put another contingency in here. In this area, it's not as much about the concrete pavement that we're concerned about, but it's the existing water mains that we'll be connecting into. We have existing water mains that we're connecting into at Bailey, 2 at Court, and up at Chestnut Street. What we found in previous projects in our downtown area is that maybe the water mains are not exactly where we think they are, or we've run into some where some old mains might still be connected to the new mains. And so in case we run into that situation, once again, just like on the first part with the concrete paving, we would recommend that if you choose to do that second portion of the project, that we at least set aside the money in anticipation that there could be some issues. We're hoping not. With that, once again, Rural Construction on the right-hand side, they provided an expedited completion date of August 11th versus Labor Day. But they are significantly higher. They almost $200,000 higher than Temperley. So the additional time savings versus $200,000 really comes down to time versus money. That's a lot of money with this particular project. If the city were to proceed with the first part, the base bid from Oak to Fourth, as well as going from Fourth to Chestnut Street, the total project cost would be approximately $854,129.45 with the contingency amounts that we've allotted up there. G-Pro Excavating was second low at $983,000. So there's about $130,000 difference between the two of them. So I think what it comes down to is, this is a money situation here as well. As I mentioned, Rural had an expedited schedule but Temperley, G-Pro and Owens would have the first part done by the end of July. Temperley and G-Pro would have their second part done by Labor Day. Owens Excavating would not commit to a time frame for that second part. They were very nervous about the potential items that they may run into along the way. We talked last time briefly about what we'd be looking at for detours and talking with Howard as well as other city staff, including the police department. We have discussed that the traffic would come down Pine Street from Chestnut. So that would be your eastbound traffic would continue down Pine Street as normal. The westbound then, which would be heading towards Lancaster, that traffic would be routed up Furnace Street, and Furnace Street would temporarily be converted to a one-way street going from east to west, from basically Water Street up to Chestnut Street. We feel that this is so far the best solution that we have for detouring that traffic. It would be very difficult to have temporary traffic control lights on Pine Street because of the grade. For example, if we have semis parked at the intersection of Oak Street, if anybody remembers how Dodge Street used to be in Dubuque back in the day on top of Grandview, even on nice days, they had semis stalling out, and we feel the same way here. Also, there's concern about traffic backing up all the way down into the intersection. We have talked with Mountain City Bank about this. They're primarily affected by this. And we've given some indications as well to Marine Credit Union, the post office and Hardig. Because if we do proceed with that second part, it just won't be Mountain City Bank that will be impacted, but it'll be all the businesses along that route. We also talked with the contractors about trying to phase the concrete replacement work. So for example, if they were to start at Oak Street, once they get up to 4th Street, they would be able to repave Oak to 4th, and that may open up some of the side streets. That way, we're trying to expedite the process as much as possible. Another item on this project that is unique to something that has not occurred much in Platteville is that we are going to be replacing the water main in the exact same location or very close to the same location as the existing water main. So once we get to 4th Street, we have approximately 10 homes and or businesses that are hooked up to the existing water main. So what we will be doing is we will be installing a temporary water system in there to provide them water service during this project. So that means we will have pipes that will be running overground that will service these houses and businesses. We will connect to their water service so they're built out the pothole and connect down in. But that way we can replace the water main in the exact same location. If we didn't do that, we would be putting the water main on the other side of the street. And so then we would be crossing all over the place. And that would be even more cumbersome than what we're dealing with right now. The only concern that Howard and I have about the second part with regards to time frame is all the, Temperley and G-Pro, they don't give us a lot of wiggle room if we have some weather events in July or August. So we would like to note that if we get some weather that's in August, we may have Pine Street closed to one lane of traffic past Labor Day when the students come back. However, talking with the contractors, they have some room in their schedules. They feel that if it would be delayed, possibly the following week. But we do want to mention that here ahead of time. Howard, I think previously has mentioned that between 4th and Chestnut Street, there's been 6 to 7 water main breaks over the years.
I don't know if it's been that many, but there have been some, yes.
Yes. So, there's been several water main breaks on that upper section. And I think myself, along with Howard and other city staff, that our main concern is that we repair Oak to 4th. And then what if we have a water main break this fall, this winter, or next year? The pricing from Temperley, as you can see, they're $120,000 lower than G-Pro and Owens, and almost $200,000 than Rule. They have a very good price for the very difficult project that's being proposed.
Okay, so in this project, water main gets replaced, not sewer.
Correct.
Correct.
How old's the
Already-
sewer pipe through there?
The sewer pipe was replaced in 2006.
When the road was done?
Yes.
And we reviewed the city's televising and they have not indicated any issues since then, at least based upon their televising reports.
And then the roadway that gets replaced is replaced with concrete or?
Correct. It'll be replaced with the same material that it is now.
Concrete. Okay. Other questions?
Yes, Dan, you said that there have been several water main breaks between Fourth and Chestnut in recent years. And when those breaks occur, the water main is not totally replaced. They're just patch fixes, right?
Correct.
Yes, yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, it seems that, I mean, it'd be risky not to fix that at the same time. If a water main break up the street could damage work that's already been done below.
That's correct.
To go through all this again, just option one seems to make the most sense.
So, you have $194,000 left over from a project. So if to do the whole project, I mean, who authorizes the additional $660,000? Is that a water and sewer decision? And where does that money come from?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's,
Great questions. So the Water Sewer Commission has responsibility over or authority over the utility budget, and this is a utility project. However, the council has authority over borrowing on behalf of the city. So I think it's really combined. So it would be a budget amendment. Either way, it's a budget amendment. The budget did not include repairs on Pine Street. So the 194,000 represents the difference between what was approved in the budget and the cost of the other project. Is that 7th Street?
Seventh, yes.
7th. So it's not real money. It's not sitting somewhere in a pot. It's just that size of spending had been approved by the Water Sewer Commission in the 2025 budget. So if we were to do the project through Chestnut, then the total project would need to be added to the utilities borrow. So that's separate from the pool, that's separate from the CIP, but there is utility CIP, and that's a separate borrow because it's a revenue bond. And so we usually undertake that borrow later in the year. And so this amount would be, we would want to get on it a little sooner on the borrow since we would be spending this amount during the summer. But we certainly could do that. And so this amount would be added to the borrow.
okay, so in Resolution 2508, we approved for 7th Avenue reconstruction, $511,397. So is that $511,397, $194,000 less than we thought we were going to have to borrow for that project? Or is that separate?
That's separate.
I'm-
That should be the GO portion, the street and the storm
I'm sorry,
portion.
I got left behind there. What are you looking at, please?
I'm looking at what we just borrowed, what we just authorized on Resolution 2508.
Right, thank you.
And it says
Let me go
7th
back.
Street reconstruction.
Yes, so that is
was
the-
only
what we
the
call the city side,
of
which
the,
would be streets and storm sewer.
but it would be pavement and storm sewer and sidewalk.
Yes, pavement and storm sewer on 7th Avenue.
And in this particular project for Main Street, for Pine Street, we're paying for the street with water and sewer money.
Yes, because it's, you could put it in these terms, it's the fault of the water main, so it's a utility project. If it weren't for the water main break, we would not be tearing up that street. So the utility bears the responsibility for the cost of repair.
Okay, other people with questions? I mean, are we making a recommendation to water and sewer? I mean, water and sewer hasn't discussed this now.
Well, true, because of the timing of wanting to be able to move on this fairly quickly and because the council meets prior to the
Water and sewer.
commission.
Right.
I suppose technically the commission could refuse to amend the budget, which would be a bit of a constitutional crisis for the city. But what the council is being asked to do is to approve the borrow, and then the commission would approve the budget amendment.
Okay, do we understand that?
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, the question is, Oak to Fourth, that wasn't even the first proposal. The first proposal that we got was second to Fourth. Water and Sewer changed it to Oak to Fourth and then said, take a look at what happens if you go all the way to Chestnuts. So, what are people's feelings here?
I'll make a motion to move to award the contract 1625 Pine Street repairs from Oak to Chestnut Street to temporarily excavating for $681,129.45.
Second.
I'll second. And we have to understand that the total cost of the project is actually $854,129.45 with contingency and engineering and traffic control. Okay, so we have a motion to award contract 1625 Pine Street repairs from Oak to Chestnut to temporarily excavating. Dave will vote.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Null,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Doss.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Howard. We're now done with the action portion of our agenda. We'll move on to information and discussion, annual video report reviews. And we were to look at 3: parks, forestry and recreation, library, and museum. Does anybody have comments, questions?
I do have some questions here, Madam Chair, that were presented to me prior to the meeting. I'd like to thank council members for reaching out prior and providing these to us. The first one is for library. The question is, how much money do you generally receive from the Institute of Museum and Library Services that you may no longer receive due to cuts by the current administration?
Yes, the Platteville Public Library, like all libraries in Wisconsin, doesn't directly receive operating budgetary funds from IMLS. So the way it typically works is the federal government sends that to the state in the form of an LSTA grant, and then those funds are distributed to different library systems. So last year, SWLS, our library system, received about $40,000 in federal funding, and that paid for things like delivery, interlibrary loan, some of our databases and things like that. So I think.
But it wasn't to Platteville Public Library, it was to the Southwest Wisconsin
Correct.
Library System.
And with all federal funds, all of these executive orders, it seems like there's a lot being questioned in court right now, so we're kind of waiting to see what gets determined at that level. But what I anticipate, if this holds up, what would end up happening is we would end up paying more for system services. So we aren't experiencing a direct cut in funding from the federal government, but we will be paying more for those existing services.
Thank you.
Mhm.
A question kind of on the comparable, this one is for Museum, Cody. How will you make up for the 24,000 in IMLS grant used for collections care that will no longer be available due to the current administration's cut to libraries, museums, and the arts?
So our main approach to this is we're looking for alternative grants. They're not going to be as large as the IMLS or the NEH grants that are out there. But, the solutions that we have in front of us are some other local, regional grants that we're going to apply for. And because there's less coming down from IMLS, like Jesse was saying. There are going to be other museums, libraries, organizations who are fighting over these, smaller grants as well. So it's going to make it harder, but that, we have to try, we have to cast our net as wide as we can go with that and try to think about alternatives. And then to kind of pick up on that, because we have received 24,000 or roughly 24,000 in the last couple of years. So, we're thinking about more programming. It's not going to make a huge difference, but anything that can help us get a little bit closer. And then really we're trying to keep an eye on our budget and thinking about, where that money goes and what we can do for it. So.
While we have you on the,
Cody,
I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
thank you.
While we have you on the floor, Cody, can cataloging items be done by volunteers, or do all aspects of the process require an expertise?
Yes. So, simple answer, yes, it can be done through volunteers. I think our approach at the museum, as well as many other museums with cataloging, especially with a collections like ours of 36,000 plus items, it's one of those things where you would definitely rather have quality over quantity. And what we're thinking about there is it would really be a shame if you got to the end and okay, we're all cataloged, and then you realized, oh, we didn't do the keyword searches, or we didn't use the lexicon, or all of these things that like Christina, our collections manager, she did go to graduate level programs to learn how to do cataloging and learn how to use Past Perfect. So yes, it can be done with volunteers, but we prefer to have that be a staff-led thing.
Understandably, thanks.
So interesting enough, I was in a meeting yesterday with Cody, and we were talking about starting to get together ideas for the 200th anniversary. And I think that we had questions on what happened to these pieces of materials in the city. And I don't know how you did it, but you grabbed your computer and you were able to actually start referencing collections to see where we tucked these bits and pieces of history away.
Yeah, and that's actually something that I think we received in 2021. And because it was properly put in the system, I was able to easily just bring it up and reference and read it out loud to people. So that's the power of doing it correctly the first time. Yeah.
Last one, while you're on the floor, sir, public perception. And in your presentation, you kind of talked about making that image of what museums are and what they mean to communities and how they continue to help educate us. Can I maybe have you expound on what are some of your ideas for maybe improving or for making it more vibrant and engaging?
Yeah. So I have some talking points here. So, the first thing, we did receive a grant from the Wisconsin Federation of Museums last fall to basically update our exhibit panels throughout our first floor. So, we're working on updating the exhibits. We actually just received a grant from the Platteville Community Fund to redress the mannequins that we have in our mines, and that they look pretty rough. Some of them, if you actually get up close enough, you realize that there's no more material left. It's just the color that had fused to the mannequin. So it's not really a great look. So we're trying to fix that and use it as an educational opportunity to talk about what type of clothing was available at this time period. So there's that. Thursday is our visiting curator's first day. So that we're bringing in a student who's going to UW Milwaukee studying museum studies and public history. And she is going to help us put together kind of an entry to the East display that will help us to just orient the people to where, what we're talking about in the museum. And then, on top of that, part of that, we will hopefully have an opening reception. So that might bring some people in, get them to look around a little bit more. And then on top of that, we're trying to think about new programming, different things to get people in that are going to engage people of all ages, people of all interests. So that's what's in the process right now.
Exciting. Thanks.
Thank you.
A question for Bob with Parks. In your presentation, Bob, you mentioned,
Question. See,
Ken has a museum question.
are you
that's fine. Go ahead, Ken.
intending to
Are you
put
going to
up on-
put another elevator?
Yeah,
Where at?
in the museum. Get upstairs.
You have one elevator?
One
Ken,
elevator.
Ken wants to know if you're going to put a second elevator in.
So our current elevator, it's down on the ground floor, and then it goes up to the first and second floors. The first floor is the exhibit space. The second floor is our collection space. We do have it during open season. We have the second story locked. Only staff can get up there because we don't want people just wandering around our collections.
So Ken, I think the answer is no. I don't think there's a plan for a second elevator.
No, there is not.
A question for Bob with Parks, Forestry, and Recs. In your presentation, you had talked in regards to the heated shop space. While we're talking, I want to thank you for the monthly emails that you send me, reminding me on the space and the problems that you're facing there at the shop. If you can maybe kind of recap on what the situation is with the heated shop, the heated space, and maybe kind of also tie that into recent discussions we've had with the design team on pump configurations and how we're getting pressed against those types of things for space as well.
Sure. Hopefully everybody has a chance to review all the positive parts because there's only the last two slides that I kind of point out the difficult parts. The difficulties, of course, is the space, particularly the heated space. In the second to last slide, you can see just what minimal space we have for parks to be able to work specifically in the winter. It's an overhead door that you have to open to put, fits a truck in one mower. And then every time you have a bearing go down or you have a part break, you got to open the door, let all the hot air back out, switch out the vehicle or switch out the mower, and then start working on that. And about the time you get that one done, then another thing is broken because, it all waits till the coldest day for everything to break. We do all the plowing. So that is a very particular problem that we've had. And I recognize that when I first was hired in 2022, I started exploring just any and all options. Back then, we got a 60 by 40 shed priced out. Cindy Tang had asked me to do that, and I did, and we got it at about 165,000. We do a lot of finishing on the inside. Of course, now that was like a lifetime ago, even though it was only 3 years ago. I have no idea how much it would cost now. But that would add us one more heated shop space and a little bit of office space. So we have been looking at it. Also, then at that time, we still owned the Armory, and that had a serviceable garage underneath. We had since sold that. So we're still facing the same issues as when I was hired. What I need to point out is for the Parks Department in the last, right before I was hired, so the previous 2 or 3 years, and then till this date, we've added, and now with the new pool, we're going to add, $10 million worth of assets to the Parks Department. And we are literally operating in the same space as before Dabrowski, before the pickleball, I can go on, before the PIP, inclusive playground. So we have the same, almost the same budget and the same space that we've had then. So this is, I feel, very important that we address this as best we can. Now, we had looked at other option of adding possibly to the space that we currently have, that shop, but we can't go to the east because of the property line, and that would take us through the driveway, and then we wouldn't even be able to get into our shop if we went to the east. We can't go to the north because of the grade and the current buildings that are there, and as well as the property line. The only possible way to go would be go to the west. And then you're going into the green space in the pool. If it doesn't sound like it'd be much if you added 40 feet, but it would take a considerable amount of space to do that. Not to mention, again, you'd have to put the door on the north side, a service door on the north side. But what Clint was talking about is for the pool, the preliminary designs show that all the mechanicals have to be taken out of the current location. And we were kind of hoping they wouldn't take as much room, and maybe we'd have a little more room inside of that. But from the preliminary designs, that's not going to happen. So unfortunately, that's not really an option either. I'm making a huge request here, and I know it's council would have to, and Clint and everyone have to be considered is, when the new fire station is done, would really like council to consider having parks utilize the old fire station. It would have the service doors, it would have the heating, it would have meeting rooms, which we don't even have a meeting room for our parks employees, particularly when we have, several in the summer and we're trying to organize who's going where. And in the second to last slide, you can see it is inside a office space that is about the size of that counter with the chairs, and not to mention the bathroom. The only bathroom, the unisex bathroom, is attached to the foreman's office, which is that same office. So when we do have office meetings, we have to empty the area that is our workshop, which often has picnic tables or whatever we're working on in the rain, inside of that to have our office space. So again, that is the last two slides. That is our difficulties. There's a lot of positive things, I think, in our presentation that you also got to enjoy that too.
I didn't look at that as negative. I looked at it more as a challenge, or it's an unfortunate amount of space. But good job, Tree City USA, 17 years running.
17 years, yep. So.
And nice job at Jenner Park.
Yeah, if everybody get a chance to see it today, they went down and put in even more plantings along the two tiers.
Oh, did they plant?
Yeah, it looks really nice. So
Yeah.
take a moment.
I was down over the weekend and saw that it wasn't quite done, but
Right.
it's so much better. It's so much better. There's no way to even say how much better it is. Yeah.
Maybe I'll make just one more point. I want to thank our three directors that are taking questions tonight, and all of our directors that have helped with this. It's quite a data load to kind of put on them, and I plan on putting more burden on them tomorrow with we start talking about maintenance stuff. So just an appreciation for all the time and effort it does take them away from the other things that I continually pester them about. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All righty. Anybody?
I do have to add a comment. I mentioned the Clint earlier. What they did, what the staff did was really something that I could grab a hold of and understand what you were trying to present. And that is so much better than what we've had before, when we basically have paper and we don't have a full presentation from you. And that is instrumental in how we look at things. Thank you very much for doing that work. Appreciate that.
We probably need to make an announcement that anybody can look at these.
Yes, certainly.
I
For
mean,
folks that are watching at home, if you go to the city manager Well, if you go to the Platteville main page, you hover over City Hall, drop to the City Manager hyperlink, click on that. Underneath the Values and Strategic Plan, it gets you all the hyperlinks to these amazing presentations that are linked off of to YouTube. Thank you, Madam President.
In fact, wouldn't it be great if Jody would do like an article for the newspaper about that?
Be promoting this through the process.
Okay. All right. Well, very interesting, and thank you all. Any other questions on any of the three?
Nope. Thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on to the next information discussion item, which is something we love to hear about, the compliance maintenance annual report. One of
Yes.
our favorites, Howard.
One of our favorites, yes, something we know and love every year. The compliance maintenance annual report for our wastewater plant is enclosed. We are required to submit it annually by June 30th. It's a self-report on the condition of our treatment plant, the collection system, our personnel, and our financial and managerial capacity. Our plant is in excellent condition and we have exceptional staff. And our system is graded A in all areas for 2024. Financial condition is stable and management procedures are in place. What will happen is tomorrow we'll have this reviewed by the Water and Sewer Commission, and they will come back with a recommendation to the council for next time, asking that you approve the resolution that you've reviewed this report and you authorize staff to submit the report.
Okay, any questions?
I have one question.
Okay,
Are we using page 192? This talks about Potosi Tennyson wastewater treatment plant was high. And I'm looking at, is this a typo? Was high in sand, high sand, what's that supposed to read?
There was a lot of sand. What had happened was the Potosi Tennyson plant had some difficulties, and they asked if we could accept some waste from them on a temporary basis, kind of as a mutual aid type of a thing. They provided the 16,500 gallons, and unfortunately, it had a lot more sand than we're used to. Our system has a grit removal process at the beginning to remove a lot of that sand and other grit. And what we're saying is that is affecting our pumps and things like that, but it did not affect the performance of the
So
plant.
the word is supposed to be is in sand, high in sand, not is sand?
What
Correct.
page are you?
High in sand.
High in sand affecting equipment. Okay.
Yes, we will make that correction.
Okay. I go to Potosi quite often.
Howard, I see that we accept septic tank and holding tank. What is this? Is this something we get paid for?
Yes. Yes. When the local septic tank haulers empty holding tanks and septic waste, they take it to our plant for final treatment, and we bill them for that.
All right, any other questions on the compliance maintenance annual report? We'll move it then to action for next meeting. There's a resolution that we'll need to adopt. Next on the agenda is the public participation plan for the comprehensive plan?
Yes, that would be me. Yes, we are working with the Southwest Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission on an update to our comprehensive plan this year. And that process, the plan itself, is governed by state statutes as far as the topics and elements that need to be covered in that plan. There's also a state law that dictates that part of that process has to be adoption of a public participation plan, which basically outlines how the community is going to provide or allow for community input into the development of the plan itself. So this plan is kind of the outline of the process that we're going to follow to obtain public input. So you have received or you will receive an email from the city manager requesting some input on members of a steering committee. So that's kind of the first step in that. We will be working with the steering committee that's going to help kind of fill in the details of this process. This is really kind of an outline, but the steering committee will help fill in the blanks, so to speak, as we go through this process. So that's an important part of that. So if you got any input either on specific individuals or if there's some type of expertise that you want to see included, something education, economic development, et cetera, please respond to that and we will try to make sure we have somebody on that steering committee that fits that need. So as part of the process itself, there will be 3 public meetings. One is kind of earmarked specifically with the university itself. The other two
Joe,
would
that's been changed. I've gotten a revised public participation plan that now names not only UW Platteville, but Southwest Technical College and the Platteville School District as part of that education consortia.
Okay.
So Clint, you didn't.
I didn't forward this to Joe yet, but there's a draft update for consideration that I plan on taking your way as based on
Right.
on discussion on tonight on what other things that you would like to see potentially considered for change.
And again, that's part of the reason for the steering committee is to provide guidance on the process. This is, as I mentioned, is I guess an outline of how we're going to follow that. So the other 2 meetings would be public meetings directly for members of the community to provide input. We're looking at possibly late September, or late August, early September to have 2 different meetings, 2 different locations, possibly different format, one open house type format. People just kind of come in and drop in when they want, provide comments, and then maybe the other one would either be the same format or more of an organized structure where we kind of provide the information, they can comment on that information. The other main source of input would be a survey that we would provide that people can respond to online at their leisure on whatever topic interests them. They can reply to the whole survey. They can kind of just get to the meat of whatever their interests are. The steering committee, obviously, as they're going through, will provide some input. And then as needed and as recommended, they'd have one-on-one meetings with different important stakeholders, groups, or individuals in the community that would try to seek their input and guidance into the plan itself. So the other part of the plan, as I mentioned, this is a statutory driven process. There is a requirement for public notice, public meetings, and formal adoption of a review of the draft plan and adoption of the plan. That's kind of a straightforward process. We actually don't have any flexibility in that. That's governed by the statute. So this plan outlines how that process will work. There's also, I think I mentioned, there's statutes that outline what's in the plan and then who also has to be notified beyond community members before it's adopted. So this goes through that required process. And it is quite lengthy, actually, but you can look through that. If you have any questions, you can let me know, but we really don't have any options on this. It's all driven by the statute. So Planning Commission did review this. They recommend approval, but it would be on for action at the next meeting.
Joe, it doesn't include the township, am I correct?
So they will be able to participate as, citizen members, I guess, of the community, but they were specifically invited to take part in a more formal process and they declined. I think they're more interested in just taking part in the county's updates as they move forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Ken?
I have a question. I was reading through here. And do you have any information on how to get more money for housing in Platteville?
Well, that will be one of the topics that will be discussed as we go through this plan. There's a housing element, and that is one of the items that will be discussed. And I think there's a lot of people in this community recognizes that is a need in the community. So we will be covering that in detail.
Ken, that's one of the reasons we bought land.
I know, but did you discuss your information on a computer?
Oh, in your community, in your video, he
Right.
wants to know if you are discussing housing.
Not in great detail. I would mention there is a new program that will be the state will be implementing. So there's regional or there's revolving loan funds that communities have right now. We have one of them. The state is pulling some of that money back, and they're specifically putting that into some new programs at the state level that will address affordable housing. So those details will be coming probably in the fall. So there are some more things that are in the works at the state and regional level that we can tap into. Well, as our chairwoman mentioned, that's part of the reason we purchased a lot of property was to help that along.
And I know that people have made application.
We've had one.
I mean, recently people have made application, developers have made application for funding, which has been denied. So I think there are people trying. It's a competitive process.
And I think we also checked in Madison, but
well, and I think sometimes, Clint, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the bigger cities are, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say they get an automatic allocation.
What we're trying to explore, we've sent off some emails and haven't gotten, it feels like we're a bit off topic, Madam Chair, but we've sent up trying to figure out the process of how that scheme works for awarding for like WIDA grants for tax credit programs. And the size of our city is considered like an urban type of city where we're competing against the large cities versus other cities that certainly have a higher population base, but for whatever types of reasons are considered a smaller city, which has us scratching our heads.
But as Joe mentioned, one of the subsections of the comprehensive plan is housing.
Correct.
It is housing. And so that will be a subsection that's explored. And will create plans relative to housing. Okay, any other questions? And like I said, after the plan commission, we have 3 education partners, and we need to recognize all of our education partners, not just one education partner. So Southwest Tech and the Platteville Public Schools will be added to the one public participation meeting. All right, 2026 proposed budget schedule.
Thank you, Madam President. So each year, we begin the budget process by presenting to the council a schedule of proposed meetings as well as a timeline for the various aspects of putting together the 2026 budget. I did notice a typo on here. Tuesday, September 30th should actually be Tuesday, September the 23rd, which is a regularly scheduled council meeting. That would be proposed for review of the 5-year capital budget. But otherwise, I would invite the council to review the document and let me know if you have any questions or concerns about any of those dates.
Okay, so if you look at the budget schedule, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, well, more than 6, highlighted in yellow. Those are dates you should look on your calendar. One of them on Tuesday, the 24th, is a regularly scheduled meeting. That's our next meeting. Tuesday, August 12th is probably our first meeting in August. It would be the second Tuesday in August.
Correct.
Tuesday, August 26th would be, the 12th would be the first, 26th would be the second meeting in August. I think I said that wrong. Nicola just corrected the September date from Tuesday, September 30th to Tuesday, September 23rd, which would be the second meeting in September.
Correct.
October 14th would be the first meeting, our first regular meeting in October. And then the 21st would be the second.
So that would be a special
That would be a
meeting, as
special.
indicated by the asterisk.
Okay.
Yes.
Special meeting. Okay. And then we go back to regular. So the only special meeting scheduled for the full council is the Tuesday, October 21 meeting. Otherwise, all of the meetings are in conjunction with our regularly scheduled meetings.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Any questions on any of that? Okay. Then I think we're at the end of this information and discussion area. So then we're to number 9. So who wants to make a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Dave will vote.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Null,
Yes.
Carrot,
Yes.
Doss.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you.